Two brothers kill their parents. This makes them killers, but are they actually the monsters? When I watched this series, I think I got secondary trauma, and I want to share with you guys what was actually happening deep down in heads and souls of all characters in this movie. I'm Darina, I'm a practicing therapist in Australia. Let's get started. So, in the first two series, we see absolutely spoiled, rotten young men looking like Ken dolls who were doing some petty crimes simply out of boredom. And of course, their parents were trying to discipline them, and those two boys became sick of their parents. They just didn't find anything better to do than go and absolutely cold-bloodedly kill their parents. And neither of brothers ever questioned, maybe this is not actually a good idea. And of course, the first question that comes to mind, whoa, seriously, you guys do not realize you had it all? Really great lives, lots of money, opportunities, status, and you are willing to risk your freedom just in a second with this stupid murder? Why could you not just pack your bags and go to another state, for example? I don't know, move to another country, start an independent life if you were just so sick of the control of your parents. Must remind you, Lyle and Eric Menendez were 21 and 18 years old, so they could have done it easily. But everything is much deeper and more tragic than even shown in the movie. For those who watched, you guys know that those two were molested by their father from the age of 6 till recently. So for most of their lives, they have been humiliated, brutally exploited, and physically and emotionally tormented. And the most important thing is, it was done by the person who was supposed to be the one who protects them, the strong figure, the role model. Not to mention that their mom also knew everything, but we are going to speak about the parents a little later here. So technically, these boys were raised as in experiment with Pavlov dogs when scientists were trying to prove what learned helplessness is. I will leave a link to the video that explains this experiment in the description of this video. So, in their heads, their father was so omnipotent. He had so much control over each aspect of their life. He has so much money that could reach them everywhere, that to get out of this situation, Lyle and Eric had to physically destroy this person. Also, how could they do it so cold-bloodedly? Literally no empathy whatsoever. No shaking hands, nothing. Because these two, after years of trauma, learned to shut down their feelings. They learned to dissociate and pretty much turned into ice blocks, just not to feel the disaster of what was happening. This is technically a step-by-step guide on how narcissists are shaped. And this is why in the movie it is emphasized that they were using a shotgun over a normal gun. Menendez Brothers' decision to use a shotgun instead of a standard firearm is deeply symbolic. A shotgun, with its broad spread and devastating impact, is designed to inflict maximum harm over a wide area. This choice reflects the brothers' profound need to express their extreme rage against their father, so not just kill but hurt as much as it possible, literally to destroy as a revenge for what was happening over those years. But why mother then? Why was she needed to die also? As I said, I will talk about parents later. But now guys, if you're getting value from this video, I'd really like to ask you to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me as a new creator to develop this channel. By the way, here we are talking about mental health and psychology of relationship. By the way, I also want to add to the appearance of both brothers. At least in the movie, they have been shown like perfect man-doll models, toned bodies, perfect faces, their obsession with tan, because their looks were the only thing they could truly control. If you guys are going to think for a second, To have a body like that takes an enormous amount of discipline and commitment, and of course you have to follow the schedule. And since they have been at any time and convenience by their father, absolutely unpredictably, without any warning signs, and had no control over the situation whatsoever, they technically did not own their bodies. But the look of their bodies, this was the only thing they could control. Moreover, they were also told which sport to play, which university to go to, which girl to date. It was a very intense scene when Jose was shouting at Eric that he had to go to the prom with this specific girl, even though Eric is actually attracted to men, which again could be a possible reaction to trauma. He was trying to normalize what was happening to him, and therefore identifying as a homosexual person made him feel that what was happening was at least a little bit normal and by his consent. Now I want to talk about the personality of Lyle. We can see that he wears a wig because as a teenager he started to lose hair, and alopecia is a common trauma response in people. He is quite an interesting character because in comparison with Eric, who does make you feel a little sorry for him, Lyle is not likable at all. He's impulsive, arrogant and aggressive, exactly like his father. And here is actually a pretty logical explanation. First of all, biological. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, which means that he is a son of his father, and unfortunately you cannot remove genetic predisposition to a psychopathy. And as we see, his father was an absolute 120% psychopath. Secondary, it is more trauma related. He could acquire traits of his father to subconsciously understand him. As we can see, Lyle was a favorite son and he dearly loved his father. So this subconscious thought process, you see, subconscious, we speak a lot about subconscious in this movie. So this thought process could be, maybe if I am like him, I'll understand him. This actually manifests in Lyle a bit Eric, and this, believe it or not, is a very common thing among siblings. It can be, again, subconscious attempt to exert control or alleviate their own pain by transferring it to others. So Lyle's abuse of Eric could be seen as a manifestation of his own unresolved trauma and an effort to replicate the authority and control he observed in his father. Also, Lyle had a classic trauma bond with his father, where the perpetrator is also a source of comfort, and therefore he strongly identifies with his father by acting like him. What about their mother? Kitty Menendez is my most hated character in this movie. So, a typical narcissistic woman who used to be a queen of beauty in New Jersey before she met Jose and moved to California, following her dream about ideal love, as a lot of narcissists do have this preoccupation with ideal love, ideal life, and so on. You know, having a beautiful house with 2 beautiful children, a rich husband, everything's perfect. And then this dream started to fall apart. Yes, she is rich, but when at the beginning it feels like, oh my god, I'm the luckiest person ever, later on you start to get used to it, and it's like you always had these millions, these limousines, these diamonds and so on. But in reality she's just a housewife of an influential and extremely aggressive man who has girlfriends, as they say, technically cheating on her, and additionally raping their children. However, what is interesting is that this so-called woman did not pick up her kids and run away screaming help. No, she pretended she saw nothing for all those continuous 12 years. By the way, this is also the reason she used substances like alcohol and was popping some pills to not see all of it. When I am drunk, I do not see the evil. The reality is so unbearable that escaping into addiction is one of the ways to dissociate and cope with everything. Can you guys imagine this? 12 years of something so horrendous happening in your house, and you're like, la 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 la, I don't know anything, I see nothing. So why did she do this? Because subconsciously she could even encourage this behavior and turn a blind eye to it because it reduced the chances of him cheating and finding another mistress. Let him at least satisfy his needs nearby, in my field of view and under my control. At the end of the day, we are giving the children everything they need. Everything they need. And moreover, she turned this hatred not on Jose, but on her own children. She said in one of the episodes, "I hate my children. They ruined my life." Because she understood that if she allowed herself to truly have a look at what was happening and confront their father, she would be left without anything. And looking at his aggressive personality, well, guys, you can imagine what would be with her. So she chose to hate her children, at least to rationalize what was happening. They're bad kids, they deserve all of it. But at the end of the movie, she did actually ask Jose, "Tell me the truth, I know what you are doing." And why do you think she has done it? Is it because she wanted to confront him? No, because if he would confess, it would be a fantastic opportunity for her to say, "I knew it and loved you always and still do. You see how loyal I am." As the whole movie, she was competing with all those mistresses as she felt inferior and not worthy. Also, it's interesting to observe Eric's reaction when his attorney said he doesn't need to forgive his mother. You guys remember how Eric struggled to admit that she was evil also. How difficult this conversation was for him. Why do you think it was like that? Because regardless the age, there is still a part inside each person that remains childlike. While Eric might have come to terms more or less with the fact that his father was evil, accepting that his mother was also evil was unbearable for him. Because the feeling of betrayal from the second closest person is intolerable. That's why when asked why they killed their mother too, they don't say it was because she knew everything and didn't protect us, or because we wanted her love and she rejected us, or because she was on his side and not on our side. All of this was repressed in Eric's head, and probably in Lyle's also. Instead, they claim it was because she was useless, a drug addict and an alcoholic, so they say they freed her. How are you guys coping with this video? It is really heavy, isn't it? Now let's smoothly move to Jose. As we saw, and I've already mentioned, he is a pure psychopath. What was his life motto? Repeatedly stated in the movie. Something like lie, cheat, steal, but don't get caught. Remember when Lyle was caught plagiarizing at Princeton? Jose wasn't mad at Lyle for cheating, he was mad at Lyle for getting caught. No doubt, Jose was very cruel with zero empathy, with deviations, and he has been extremely manipulative. In his conversation with his wife Kitty, I honestly wanted to take pen and paper to note all his manipulations. It was literally a step-by-step manipulation manual. When he was caught, or rather when confronted with the facts, his demeanor instantly changed. He began telling the stories to his wife, with shifting her attention from his actions to his own victimhood. Later, everything falls into place. There is a scene where Jose Menendez is on the phone with his mother, and during the conversation he hints at his own traumatic experiences. He says something like, "You know what he did to me," implying that his mother's boyfriend might have abused him. This line, delivered with frustration and anger, hints at unresolved issues from his past. So, the circle closed. You probably noticed how intriguingly the homosexual theme works in Jose's mind. He was molesting his boys, calling it toughening up. Yet, when Eric was caught being homosexual, Jose considered him a f***. And later on, in his interaction with a male worker, Jose shares a disturbing philosophy about ancient Roman and Greek soldiers who engage in sexual relationships to build deeper bonds and loyalty. He explains this as a method to strengthen unity, trust, and dedication on the battlefield. In the movie, this philosophy serves as a twisted justification for his behavior, particularly the alleged abuse of his sons. It highlights his manipulation and attempts to rationalize his actions by referencing historical practices, ignoring modern moral and ethical consideration. So here is how he explains everything to himself and protects himself from himself. Every perpetrator has a philosophy behind their action. Jack the Ripper, who targeted prostitutes in late 19th century in London, might have seen himself as punishing immorality. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, saw his victims as weak, claiming he was acting as a predator in a natural order where only the strong should survive. So what are the conclusions? Are the Menendez brothers killers? Absolutely, they are. But their upbringing explains everything in a logical order. It's not justified, but it's explained. They say psychology is a pseudoscience, but for me it's a very logical with its rules. We can clearly see the repeating pattern in this story. I don't know how accurately this movie represents the real story, but we are not here to determine what is true and what's not. We are discussing the phenomenon itself, even if it's a hypothetical scenario. On this channel, we are speaking about psychology of relationships and mental health. Subscribe, hit the like button, and I'll see you in next videos.